The afternoon sun was gentle, casting a warm glow across the quiet community park. Birds chirped softly, and children's laughter filled the air as families gathered under colorful tents for Family Day. It was an event where parents played with their children, sharing snacks, games, and stories. Among the crowd, a man in a sharp navy blue suit sat on a wooden bench near the fountain. His name was Michael Carter, a billionaire known for his powerful business empire and strict routine. He was there only because his driver had taken a wrong turn, and he decided to spend a few minutes finishing an important phone call. Michael was the kind of man who lived by the clock. Every minute of his day was planned, and every second meant profit or loss. Emotions had no place in his world. Children, in his opinion, were noisy and distracting. He had never married, never had children, and rarely took time to look at the world outside his office windows. But that day was about to change in a way he could never imagine. As he scrolled through his phone, checking emails, a small shadow fell over him. He looked up, slightly annoyed, and saw a little girl standing a few steps away. She was about 8 years old, with warm brown skin and bright eyes that looked both curious and nervous. Her curly hair was tied with a faded pink ribbon, and her dress had a small tear near the hem. She held a paper plate with half-eaten cake, but her hands were shaking slightly. "Excuse me, sir," she said softly, her voice almost lost in the noise of the park. Michael frowned. "Yes? Do you need something?" The girl hesitated, glancing over her shoulder at a group of children gathered near the playground. They were playing and laughing with their parents, but a few of them were pointing at her and whispering. Her lips trembled as she turned back to him. Can you pretend to be my dad? Just for 10 minutes, she asked. For a moment, Michael thought he misheard her. What did you say? He asked, lowering his phone. Please, she whispered, clutching her plate tightly. It's Family Day. Everyone has their moms and dads here. They keep teasing me because I don't have one to come with me. Michael blinked, trying to process her words. He looked at her again, at the way her shoulders drooped, the way her small hands twisted the edge of the plate, and the sadness in her big, hopeful eyes. He was a man used to hearing business proposals worth millions, but this simple request felt heavier than any deal he had ever signed. Where is your father? He asked carefully. Her eyes dropped to the ground. He passed away last year, she murmured. Mama works a lot. She couldn't come today. I just wanted, just 10 minutes. So they stopped laughing at me. Michael felt a strange tug in his chest. He had no experience comforting children. He didn't even know how to talk to them properly. His first instinct was to say no. He had meetings, deadlines, and calls waiting. But as he looked at her again, standing there with so much quiet pain in her small frame, something inside him softened. He put his phone in his pocket. What's your name? He asked. Lily, she replied, a faint spark of hope lighting up her face. Well, Lily, he said slowly, 10 minutes, you said. She nodded quickly, as if afraid he would change his mind. Michael let out a quiet sigh and stood up. He was much taller than her, and when he held out his hand, her small fingers curled into his like it was the most natural thing in the world. They started walking toward the playground, and for the first time in a long time, Michael ignored the vibration of his phone in his pocket. As they walked, the group of children who had been whispering turned to look. Their laughter paused, their eyes wide at the sight of the elegant man in the expensive suit holding Lily's hand. One boy muttered something under his breath, but Lily lifted her chin proudly. For those few steps, she no longer felt alone. Michael said nothing. He didn't know what a father was supposed to say in such a moment. But he stayed by her side, letting her guide him. The park, which had seemed so ordinary just a few minutes ago, now felt strangely alive. He noticed the smell of fresh grass, the sound of balloons popping in the distance, and the way Lily's steps grew lighter as they reached the group. "Everyone," Lily said, her voice louder now, "this is my dad." The words hung in the air, simple but powerful. The teasing stopped. The children stared, and a few even smiled awkwardly. Michael gave them a polite nod, saying nothing more. In that moment, something shifted not just for Lily, but for Michael too. 10 minutes had never felt so important. The children around the playground stared for a few seconds, then returned to their games. Some whispered among themselves, throwing quick glances at Lily and the tall man beside her. But the teasing stopped, at least for now. Lily's small hand held tightly onto Michael's, her grip warm but a little shaky. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel invisible. She had someone beside her, someone who looked like he belonged in a tall building with glass walls, not a park full of balloons and cupcakes. Michael stood still, unsure of what to do next. He had agreed to play this part for 10 minutes, but now that he was here, surrounded by curious children and parents, he felt strangely out of place. His world was made of conference calls, contracts, and expensive dinners. This world of sticky fingers, painted faces, and playful laughter was foreign to him. Lily looked up at him. "Do you want to play something?" she asked, almost afraid he might change his mind and walk away. Michael cleared his throat. "What do you usually play here?" he asked. She pointed toward a small circle where children were tossing a softball and taking turns catching it. "We can join that," she said. "Or, you can just sit with me. I don't mind." Something about her voice, gentle, yet filled with a quiet wish, made Michael set aside his hesitation. "Let's try the ball game," he said. Lily's face brightened, and for the first time that afternoon, her smile reached her eyes. They walked toward the circle, and one of the children, a boy with freckles, handed Michael the ball with a half grin. "Your turn, mister," the boy said. Michael caught the ball, feeling slightly awkward. It was soft and light, like a pillow, but the stares of the children made him feel as though he were holding something far heavier. He tossed it gently toward Lily, and she caught it with ease. The children clapped, and the game continued. Minutes passed, and Michael found himself laughing just a little when the ball bounced off his shoulder instead of his hands. Lily giggled too, and for that small moment, they looked like any other father and daughter in the park. Parents nearby glanced at them, some with warm smiles, others with curious looks. No one knew who he really was, and he preferred it that way. As the game ended, Lily handed him a small paper cup of lemonade from the refreshment table. "Thank you for staying," she said softly. "You didn't have to." Michael sipped the drink. It was sweeter than he expected. "I said 10 minutes, didn't I?" he replied, though his tone lacked its usual coldness. Lily's smile faded a little. "Yes, but 10 minutes feels like forever when you never have anyone." Her words were quiet, but they struck something deep inside him. He didn't know what to say. He was a man who negotiated billion-dollar deals, yet here he was, speechless before an 8-year-old girl. He glanced at his watch out of habit, but for once, the ticking seconds didn't feel like chains. They felt like choices. "Tell me about your mother," he said after a pause. "She works at the bakery down the street," Lily replied. "She leaves early in the morning and comes home late. She says she wants to give me a better life. She's tired all the time, but she smiles for me." Michael nodded slowly. He had seen many hard-working employees in his life, people who sacrificed their comfort for their families. But he had never thought about what it felt like for their children, waiting, hoping, wanting a moment like this. The sound of a whistle blew in the distance, announcing the next activity, a race where parents carried their children on their backs. Lily's eyes followed the other families, and her smile dimmed again. "We can just watch," she said quickly, as if not to burden him. But Michael surprised himself by kneeling down slightly. Hop on, he said. Her eyes widened. Really? 10 minutes, remember, he said with a small smirk. She climbed onto his back, light as a feather, and the other children cheered as they joined the race. Michael didn't run fast, he was in a suit, after all, but every step made Lily laugh louder. It wasn't about winning. It was about being there. When they reached the finish line, a few parents clapped, and Lily held onto his shoulders a moment longer than necessary. "You're really good at this," she whispered. Michael, slightly out of breath, gave a faint chuckle. "Don't tell anyone. It'll ruin my serious reputation." For those few minutes, the park wasn't just a place he passed by on the way to a meeting. It was a world where time slowed down, where laughter mattered more than schedules. And for Lily, it was the first time in a long time she felt like she belonged. As they walked back toward the bench, Lily asked softly, "Will you stay until the end? Just this once?" Michael looked at her, then at the children, and finally at his phone vibrating again in his pocket. For the first time in years, he didn't reach for it. The park was now full of soft evening light. The balloons floated gently above the tents, and the smell of freshly baked cookies spread across the open ground. Children were painting small stones, drawing colorful pictures, and making paper crowns. Laughter came from every corner, but Lily was not looking around anymore. Her eyes stayed on the man beside her, the man who had agreed to be her father for 10 minutes but was still here, even as those 10 minutes had long passed. Michael walked slowly with her, his hands in his pockets now, more relaxed than he had been in years. He noticed little things he never cared about before: the way the trees swayed, the sound of the children's chatter, the uneven steps of Lily as she tried to match his long strides. Something about her made him curious. She was not asking for gifts, not demanding anything. All she wanted was his time, and that was something he had always guarded like gold. "Do you come to this park often?" Michael asked as they stopped near a table filled with crayons and blank sheets. "Sometimes," Lily said, picking a green crayon. "Only when Mama is not too tired. She says the park makes her remember Papa, so she doesn't like staying long." Michael nodded. He didn't want to push her for more details, but her words painted a quiet picture of a small home filled with both love and emptiness. Lily began to draw a small house with a sun above it and two stick figures holding hands. She added a third one, much taller, with a tie around its neck. "That's you," she said with a shy smile, pointing at the tall stick figure. Michael looked at it for a moment. He had seen many portraits of himself in newspapers and magazines, wearing expensive suits and shaking hands with powerful people. But this little drawing felt warmer than any of those. "You made me look very tall," he said, trying to keep his voice light. "You are tall," Lily giggled. "And important. Everyone was looking at us." He glanced around. Indeed, some parents were still sneaking curious looks in their direction. Some even whispered to one another, perhaps trying to guess who he was. But for once, Michael didn't care about what anyone thought. After Lily finished her drawing, they moved to the cupcake table. She offered him one with blue icing. "You should try this," she said. "It's my favorite." Michael hesitated. He was used to carefully planned meals, nothing too sweet or sticky. But her hopeful eyes made him pick one up. The sugar stuck to his fingers, the icing left a small mark on his lip, and Lily laughed at the sight. It was a sound so genuine, so full of joy, that it made him laugh too quietly, awkwardly, but sincerely. As they sat on the grass with their cupcakes, Lily spoke again. "Sometimes, I wish I could keep moments like this in a box. So when I feel lonely, I can open it and feel better." Michael turned his head slightly. "Why do you feel lonely?" he asked softly. She shrugged. "Mama tries her best. But when I see other kids with their dads, I wonder if Papa would have come to things like this. I don't remember him much. Only his voice. There was no bitterness in her words, only a quiet ache that even a child could not hide. Michael looked at her small hands resting on her knees and felt an unusual heaviness in his chest. He had always believed that money could solve problems, build schools, open hospitals, create jobs. But sitting here beside her, he realized there were problems money could not touch: the emptiness of a missing father, the silence of a lonely evening. He wanted to say something, but words felt too thin for the weight in the air. Instead, he asked, "What would you like to do next?" Lily's eyes brightened again. "They are making paper boats near the pond. Can we go?" Michael nodded. "Lead the way." By the pond, children were folding colored papers into boats and letting them float across the water. Lily made one, carefully creasing the edges. Michael, guided by her small fingers, made one too, his first paper boat in decades. They placed them on the water together, watching them drift slowly. For a moment, it was just the two of them, the ripples, and the fading sunlight. "You know," Lily said quietly, "today feels like a dream. I hope it doesn't end too soon." Michael looked at her, then at the paper boats. A strange thought came to him. This was supposed to be a 10-minute favor, something small, almost meaningless. Yet here he was, an hour later, feeling something he hadn't felt in years: peace. He reached out and gently patted her head. "Some dreams," he said slowly, "are worth staying in a little longer." Lily didn't reply. She only smiled, and in that smile, Michael saw something he didn't know he was missing all along: a sense of belonging, not just for her, but for him too. The sun had started to set, painting the sky in soft shades of orange and pink. The park was still lively, but the noise had turned gentler, like a song reaching its quiet ending. Children were gathering near the main tent, where the final part of Family Day was about to begin: a small concert with songs and a few short speeches. Parents took their seats on wooden benches, while children sat on mats close to the stage. Michael and Lily stood a little apart from the crowd, near the pond where their paper boats were still floating. The 10 minutes Lily had asked for were long gone, but neither of them had noticed how quickly time had passed. Michael's phone vibrated again in his pocket, a reminder of the world waiting for him outside this small park. Yet, for the first time in years, he didn't feel the usual rush to answer. Lily looked up at him, her eyes reflecting the warm evening light. "It's almost over," she said softly. Michael nodded. "Yes. You did well today. You were brave." She smiled, but it was a small smile, the kind that hides a question. After a pause, she asked, "Will you leave now?" He was silent for a moment. In his head, the logical answer was yes. He had already done more than he planned. But something in her voice made him hesitate. It wasn't just a question. It was a quiet hope. "Do you want me to stay?" he asked. Lily looked down at her shoes, then nodded slowly. "Just until the end. Please. Everyone will sing together." "I don't want to sing alone." Michael let out a soft sigh, but it wasn't of annoyance. It was the sound of a man making an unusual decision, choosing to stay where his heart, not his calendar, told him to. "All right," he said. "I'll stay." Lily's face brightened instantly. It was a small change, but it felt like the whole park had just lit up with her smile. She took his hand again, and together they walked to the benches. The concert began with a cheerful song sung by the children. Lily sang softly, her voice mixing with the others. Michael sat beside her, not singing, but listening. He noticed how her small shoulders relaxed now, how her eyes no longer searched the crowd with that lonely look. For this moment, she had what she wanted: a father figure by her side. When the song ended, the event organizer, a kind woman with glasses, came to the microphone. "Thank you, everyone, for joining this year's Family Day. Before we close, we'd like to thank all the parents who made time to be here for their children." The parents clapped for one another. Some fathers lifted their children in the air, some mothers wiped happy tears from their cheeks. Michael looked at them and felt an odd tightness in his chest. He had always believed success meant long hours, hard choices, and cold focus. But here, he saw a different kind of success, the kind that didn't earn money but gave warmth. Lily turned to him and whispered, "Do you ever go to places like this?" He shook his head slightly. "Not really." "Maybe you should," she said with a small laugh. "It's nice, isn't it?" Michael smiled faintly. "It is." After the songs, the children were given little paper medals and goodie bags. Lily accepted hers with both hands and looked up at him proudly. "I'll show this to Mama," she said. "She will be so happy." For a moment, Michael felt something unfamiliar, an urge to say more, to ask about her life, to know her story fully. But before he could, the organizer approached them. "You must be Lily's father," she said kindly. "Thank you for coming. She's been so happy today." Michael hesitated. He wasn't sure what to say. But Lily spoke before he could. "Yes," she said quickly, her voice filled with a mix of truth and make-believe. "He came for me." The organizer smiled warmly and moved on to greet another family. Michael glanced down at Lily. She didn't meet his eyes this time. Instead, she looked straight ahead, clutching her medal tightly. It wasn't a lie to hurt anyone, it was a wish turned into a sentence. As the event began to wrap up, parents started leaving one by one. Some waved goodbye to Michael, assuming he was who Lily said he was. He nodded politely, still unsure how to explain himself. Then Lily turned to him once more. "Thank you," she said. "You made me feel like I'm not missing anything. Just for today." Michael's chest felt heavy, but in a warm way, like something had filled a space that had been empty for too long. "Sometimes," he said quietly, "a small moment can make a big difference." The lights of the park started to dim, and the air grew cooler. Michael knew he couldn't stay forever. But as they stood together, he realized that what started as 10 borrowed minutes had turned into something neither of them would forget. The park was now quieter. Families had started to leave, carrying balloons and leftover snacks. The sky was turning deep blue, with the first stars slowly appearing. Michael and Lily walked slowly toward the entrance, their shadows stretching long across the grass. The evening breeze carried the smell of popcorn and the faint sound of a distant ice cream cart bell. Lily held her small goodie bag close, her medal swinging from her neck. Her steps were light, but her eyes showed a hint of worry. "Mama said she will come," she whispered, almost to herself. "She finishes work around now." Michael glanced down at her. "Would you like me to wait with you until she arrives?" Lily nodded quickly. "Yes. Please." They stood near the gate, where a few parents were saying their goodbyes. Michael felt a little out of place again. He was a man of polished meetings and silent cars with tinted windows, yet here he was, holding a paper cup and a half-empty bottle of water, waiting like an old friend. A few minutes later, a woman in a bakery uniform hurried across the street, her hair tied in a loose bun, a tired but loving expression on her face. She was carrying a small bag of bread and pastries, probably leftover from her shift. Her eyes searched the crowd, and when they landed on Lily, they filled with relief. "Lily," she called, her voice warm but breathless. "Mama." Lily ran toward her, hugging her tightly. Michael watched the reunion quietly. The woman looked down at her daughter, brushing her hair gently. "Were you all right?" "I came as soon as I could." "Yes, Mama," Lily said, her face glowing. "It was the best day ever." The woman smiled weakly. "Best day? Even without me?" Lily pulled her closer. "I wasn't alone. He came." She turned and pointed toward Michael. The woman followed her finger and saw him tall, well-dressed, with a calm but slightly awkward look. She hesitated, unsure what to think. "And, who is he?" Before Michael could speak, Lily answered quickly, "He's my dad for today. Just for 10 minutes. The woman blinked, confused. "Your dad?" Michael stepped forward, his voice gentle. "I think I should explain. She approached me earlier. She said it was family day, and she didn't want to feel left out. She asked if I could pretend, just for a short while." The woman looked at Lily, then back at him. For a second, her face showed surprise, then something softer, gratitude mixed with sadness. "You agreed?" Michael nodded. "Yes. I didn't plan to stay this long, but she's a remarkable child." The woman's eyes glistened, though she tried to hide it with a small smile. "She is. She misses her father a lot. He passed away last year. I work long hours, and I couldn't take leave today. I was afraid she would spend the day sitting alone." Michael listened silently. The words made the quiet ache in his chest grow stronger. He had seen loneliness in boardrooms, in high-rise apartments, in his own life even, but here, in this small story of a hard-working mother and her brave little girl, it felt sharper, more real. "Thank you," the woman said finally, her voice low but sincere. "You didn't have to do that. People don't usually stop for strangers anymore." Michael shook his head lightly. "It wasn't a burden. It was different. It made me realize some things." Lily held her mother's hand tightly. "Mama, he played with me, he even carried me in the race. I wasn't left out this time." Her mother bent down and kissed her forehead. "I'm glad, sweetheart. I really am." For a brief moment, all three stood there in silence, the billionaire with his untouched phone in his pocket, the tired mother with flour on her sleeves, and the little girl with a medal that meant the world to her. "Do you live nearby?" Michael asked gently. The woman nodded. "2 streets away. We have a small apartment." "Why?" He hesitated. "I was just thinking, if you ever need anything for her, maybe I can help. Education, or opportunities." The woman blinked, unsure how to respond. "That's kind of you, but we manage. I don't want her to expect help from everyone who shows kindness. Life doesn't always give that." Michael respected her answer. There was strength in her words, a dignity he admired. "Of course," he said simply. Lily looked between them, her face thoughtful. "Can he visit again, Mama?" "Just sometimes." Her mother smiled softly, a little weary but not refusing. "If he wants to." Michael met her eyes and nodded. "Maybe I will." The street light above them flickered on, casting a warm glow over their small triangle of quiet understanding. For a man who had always rushed from one meeting to another, this stillness felt new and important. As they began to walk away, Lily turned back and waved. "Thank you for being my dad today." Michael raised his hand slightly, a rare softness in his eyes. "Thank you for asking me," he replied. He watched them disappear down the street, the mother holding her daughter's hand firmly. Something told him this was not the end of their story. The following week, Michael Carter sat in his office on the top floor of a tall glass building. Outside, the city was busy as always, cars moving like small toys on the streets below. His desk was full of documents, his phone was buzzing with calls, but his mind was somewhere else, back in the park, where a little girl named Lily had smiled at him like he was the most important person in her world. He tried to focus on the numbers on the screen, but every few minutes, the image of her proud face, holding that paper medal, would return. It had been just a day, just a few hours, but it stayed with him longer than he expected. Michael had built his life around success. He had money, property, and people who listened to his words in every meeting. But after that afternoon, those things felt quieter. Empty, even. The laughter of one child had made him notice the silence in his own life. He leaned back in his chair, tapping his fingers on the armrest. I could help them, he thought. But how? Without making them feel like they owe me something. Later that week, he asked his assistant to look into the bakery where Lily's mother worked. It didn't take long. She was a hard-working woman named Grace. Her record showed she had been working extra hours for months, never late, never complaining. The bakery was small and modest, the kind of place that survived because of dedication, not profit. Michael decided to visit quietly. No cameras, no headlines. He stepped into the bakery one early evening, wearing a simple coat instead of his usual suit. The smell of fresh bread and warm sugar filled the air. Grace was behind the counter, arranging pastries. She looked up, surprised. "Mr. Carter," she said, recognizing him from the park. "Please, just Michael," he replied with a small smile. "I was in the area. Thought I'd try your bread." Grace wiped her hands nervously on her apron. "It's nothing special, but it keeps us going." Michael bought a loaf and a few small cakes. He waited until the shop was empty before speaking again. "I wanted to thank you," he said. She frowned slightly. "Thank me? For what?" "For raising a girl like Lily," he said simply. "She's bright. Brave. She made me see something I had forgotten, that time is valuable when it is shared." Grace's eyes softened, though they still held caution. "She talks about you," she admitted. "She said you made her feel seen that day. But I didn't want to trouble you. We manage, Mr. Michael." Michael nodded slowly. "I know you do. And I respect that. But I wanted to ask if I could help properly this time. Not just by standing in a park, but in a way that lasts." Grace hesitated, her hands folding over her apron. "Help how?" "I have a foundation," he said. "It supports children's education. I could make sure Lily has everything she needs for her studies, good schools, books, lessons she enjoys. And for you, if you're willing, I have positions in my company. You'd work fewer hours, better pay. You'd have more time with her." The room felt very still for a moment. Grace looked at him as if trying to find a hidden reason. "Why would you do this for us?" she asked. Michael paused, then answered honestly. "Because that day changed something in me. It reminded me that success is not only about earning, but about giving." She gave me 10 minutes that felt real. I want to give her more than that if you allow me." Grace's eyes glistened, but she blinked quickly, keeping her voice steady. "I don't want her to think the world always gives gifts without reason." "And you're right," Michael agreed. "That's why this is not a gift. Think of it as a chance. One she already earned by being who she is." Just then, the bell over the bakery door rang softly, and Lily walked in, her school bag on her back. When she saw Michael, her face lit up. "You came." Michael knelt slightly to meet her eyes. "I said maybe I would, didn't I?" She nodded, then looked between her mother and him. "Are you talking about me?" Grace smiled gently. "Always," she said. Lily pulled out a crumpled drawing from her bag, the one she had made in the park. "I kept it," she said proudly. "Because that day felt special." Michael took the drawing carefully. "It was special," he agreed. That evening, they talked a little more. Grace didn't give her answer yet, but she didn't refuse either. She said she needed to think. And Michael, for the first time in a long while, felt patient. As he left the bakery, the warm smell of bread following him out into the cool night, he realized that sometimes change doesn't happen in a single moment. Sometimes it starts quietly with a small hand in yours, a simple question, and a promise that maybe, just maybe, 10 minutes can turn into something far greater. Weeks passed since that unforgettable day in the park. Michael found himself thinking about Lily and her mother more often than he expected. The city's tall buildings and endless meetings no longer held the same appeal. Something had shifted inside him, a quiet awareness that life was bigger than contracts, profits, and deadlines. There was room for warmth, for connection, and for moments that mattered more than money. One bright Saturday morning, Michael arrived at the small bakery where Lily's mother worked. He was dressed simply, without the usual suit or watch that marked his time so strictly. The bell above the door jingled softly as he entered, and Grace looked up in surprise. "Michael," she said quietly. "I didn't expect I'm here," he said with a gentle smile. "To see her." Just then, Lily appeared from the back room, her school bag still slung over one shoulder. The moment their eyes met, she ran toward him, laughing and skipping in excitement. "You came," she exclaimed, wrapping her small arms around his waist. "I promised I would," Michael said, kneeling slightly so she could hug him comfortably. "Did you save me a spot for today's adventure?" Lily giggled and grabbed his hand, leading him outside. Michael followed, careful not to break the fragile joy in her steps. They walked to the small park across the street, where the grass was still green and the flowers smelled of summer. It had been a few weeks since the family day event, but to Lily, this moment felt just as magical. "Today," Lily said proudly, "we're going to build the biggest paper boat ever." Michael chuckled. "All right. Lead the way." They worked together by the pond, folding large sheets of colorful paper. Michael tried his best to follow her instructions, though some folds were uneven and some boats looked funny. Lily didn't care. She laughed at every mistake, clapping her hands when a boat finally floated without tipping over. As they played, Grace watched from a nearby bench, a soft smile on her face. The tiredness of long work hours seemed lighter now, replaced by quiet contentment. She had noticed the changes in her daughter. Lily was more confident, more cheerful, and filled with a new sense of hope. And Michael, the man who had once seemed untouchable, had become part of that hope. When the boats were ready, Michael lifted Lily onto his shoulders. "Hold on tight," he said with a playful grin. She squealed in delight as they walked slowly to the water, careful not to let any boat fall too soon. Together, they launched the largest boat into the pond, watching it drift steadily with the current. "You see," Michael said, lowering Lily gently to the ground. "Even the biggest things start with small hands." Lily laughed, twirling in the sunlight. "And the best things," she added, "start with kindness." Michael paused at her words. Kindness. It was something he had learned that day, but now it was something he felt in his own life, growing quietly like the boats on the water. Later, as they sat on the grass, Michael handed Lily a small notebook. "I thought you could keep this," he said. "Draw your boats, write your stories, or even make new adventures. And when you want to share them, I'll always be here to listen." Her eyes sparkled with joy. "Really?" she whispered. "Really," he said, smiling. Grace approached and sat beside them. "Thank you, Michael," she said softly. "For being here. For showing Lily that someone cares." Michael shook his head slightly. "No. She showed me. She reminded me what matters most." The three of them sat in quiet companionship, watching the sunlight reflect off the pond. For Michael, this was more than 10 minutes. This was a moment of belonging, a bond that could not be measured in hours or minutes, but in trust, love, and shared laughter. Over the next months, Michael became a steady presence in Lily's life. He helped with her school supplies, attended her small performances, and even found a way for Grace to work fewer hours while still supporting them. He did all this quietly, without seeking recognition, because the joy he saw in their eyes was worth far more than anything money could buy. Lily never forgot that first day he held her hand in the park. To her, Michael wasn't just a friend or a helper, he was someone who had given her a sense of family, if only for 10 minutes at first, and then for much longer. And Michael, the billionaire who had once thought he needed nothing but success, discovered that life's richest moments were not contracts signed or profits earned, but the quiet, shared smiles of a little girl who had asked him for 10 minutes and in doing so, had changed his heart forever. As the sun set again over the city, painting the sky in soft oranges and purples, Michael, Lily, and Grace walked home together. The world was still busy around them, but in that small space, they had found something priceless: love, trust, and a family born from kindness. It was no longer about 10 minutes. It was about every day after, building a life full of small joys, laughter, and moments that mattered. And in that, they were truly rich.